Bobby Newport. He once traveled to Northrend to pick up a sword and killed his own father.
That's not how you started the podcast, right?
Oh, that's 100% how we started this week's episode of the Loreband, a World of Warcraft lorecast. This is part 2 of our Christmas special that we've been doing, going over all things Midnight related. Last episode, we answered a bunch of your lore questions and kind of just touched the surface, actually, of Midnight lore. We talked about the cosmic forces that exist in Warcraft, and we talked about some of the beings that represent those forces that are out there in the universe. Chicken, how are you feeling, dude?
I'm feeling like I've learned a lot, and also feeling like I haven't learned that much.
I get it. We've not really gotten super deep into it. We rabbit trailed on the last episode, which is pretty normal. I think par for the course for us. But before we dive into this next episode, Chicken, dude, what have you been up to in WoW this week?
Not too much. Legion, dude. Legion remix. Every time I'm like, oh yeah, I'm done with Legion remix, but then there's just something else that comes out that I'm like, oh, I gotta finish this.
Dude, there's so much, especially like so much cool stuff in Legion that you can get, and for housing too. If you're trying to get all the housing stuff, Legion is so good for getting tons of housing items. I was actually surprised because at first I looked at Legion housing stuff and all I saw was like the fell things. I'm like, I don't really need a bunch of fell stuff.
This is kind of cool.
But then I started seeing like all this stuff in like Val'sharah and Suramar, and I'm like, okay, I want that. I do want that. I'm sure your wife is probably giving you a laundry list of things that you need to pick up for her for the house.
Yeah, kinda.
I believe it. But you know what though? That does bring up a good point, right? We're talking about the Legion expansion. But what the heck even is the Legion?
The Burning Legion. Oh, wait.
You got it. No, that's it, dude. You got it. The Burning Legion. You did good.
I was like, I kind of remember that from the book that I've been listening to.
Oh, yeah. Which book are you going through right now?
Oh, my gosh. This is sad that I can't even...
It's the one about the orcs on Draenor, correct?
No. Oh, my goodness. Let me look it up. Sorry, this is sad. I should know exactly what it's called.
Rise of the Horde?
I think it is Rise of the Horde. Yeah, I'm like on chapter 5 or 6. Like I think I just went through where they talk about what's his name finding like his wife or something, like who he was gonna like settle down with.
Oh, Thrall.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that book does go on to talk about...
what was his name before he was called Thrall? I always forget.
So, originally he was called Thrall, and then his parents had named him...
It's not Orgrimmar.
No. You're thinking of Orgrim Doomhammer. That's
Orgrim, not it. Yeah, Orgrim Doomhammer. That was his friend, right?
Yeah, but Thrall, his parents gave him a different name. So Thrall actually in human means it means slave, right? So in human it actually just means like slave. And so that's why he doesn't love being called Thrall, right? Because that just means he's being called slave every time somebody talks to him. But for us, Thrall is also kind of just like a sick name, you know? It's just kind of a really cool name.
It is kind of a sick name.
And I kind of want him just to keep using that name. There was a while where they tried to change his name, and I don't remember what they were trying to change it to, which again wasn't the plan of what I wanted to talk about today. So I didn't have it. I didn't do my extra research on it. I was ranting about it on the podcast, I feel like the other week. So maybe go back, listen to the last 7 episodes, and I'll probably rant about it in one of those. What was that, like only 30 hours of listening time or something? Perfect.
Yeah, don't ask me.
No. So I was actually trying to look it up and pull it up, but I just couldn't find it. Which is, oh gosh, I can't even type. All right, here we go. Thrall's originally was Goel. That's right. It's like Superman, right? It's like Superman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Instead of Kal-El, it's Goel, right? But yeah, so nobody likes using the name Goel. They really tried for a while to shift to Goel. I don't know why. I think that was dumb. But nowadays in marketing, they don't even reference it. They don't even care. He's Thrall, dude. People love Thrall. He's awesome. They don't want to change his name. But yeah, Rise of the Horde though does do a good job of going over a few of the things we're actually going to talk about today. So maybe if you continue to read the book, you're going to be like, yo, I get this. This makes sense now. That's awesome. So
yeah, I probably will. Point.
Yeah, probably. You'll probably call me up.
So cool.
Yeah, you'll call me up and be like,
in the middle of the night,
I finally get it. Yeah.
Swag.
Yeah.
I get it.
I understand it now. It all makes sense.
It's all coming back to me.
All right. But anyways, the next segment of our lore telling here that we have, I'm calling it Titanic Betrayal. All right, because it's about the Titans. Titans. But a little bit of betrayal going on here, dude. A little bit of betrayal. By the way, some of these names you're going to hear are important for you to know. I'm also only trying to reference names that matter for the greater story that we're telling. So I'm going to skip over. Like, as we talk about the Titans, I'm not going to name every Titan's name. There's actually only one Titan that I'm going to name today. Because, again, I don't need to tell you the whole story of WoW lore. I just need to get you to know some of these important characters enough, right? And so one character, though, one Titan that has had more impact than any other Titan to the story we experience is a Titan named Sargeras. And I want to get you into the story of Sargeras a little bit, right?
Yeah, I know who Sargeras is.
Yeah, let's go. So Sargeras, right, is one of the Titans. And the Titans, as we know, were going around ordering the universe. They would just kind of go around, create order. But they also started to discover that these old gods were kind of like leeching off plants, right? Specifically on Azeroth. The Titans get to Azeroth, and they see that the World Soul is awesome. The Azeroth World Soul is the best World Soul there is. There's no better World Soul than the Azeroth World Soul. Supposedly, it's going to be the strongest Titan we've ever seen. There's some theory crafting that maybe it's not a Titan. Maybe Azeroth is something unique. Let's assume it is a Titan, and let's assume it's going to be a really powerful Titan, right? Maybe the last Titan is Azeroth. Maybe the last Titan is Sargeras. We don't know. But anyways, they want to protect this planet. The Titans find it, and they want to take care of it. And so they try to remove the old gods from this planet. They literally grab one of them and try to pluck it, literally pluck it off the planet. And it leaves this gaping wound in the side of the planet. And so they realize that doesn't work. They can't take that approach to kill these old gods, because that will actually kill the planet, right? Their attempt to kill the old gods is going to kill the planet. And so they actually had to go and take the that gaping wound that was leaking arcane energy, right? It's just leaking raw arcane energy, life force from this planet. And they turned it into this big lake type thing, a big lake, watery lake. But the way it worked was it was actually just cycling that arcane energy out of the wound and then back into the planet. So that way the planet wasn't dying, but now you had this big font of arcane energy just sitting in this one spot on the planet. That was called the Well of Eternity. You'll want to remember that name, Well of Eternity. Okay? Now after...
Well of Eternity.
Mm-hmm. Now, because the old god or the Titans were unable to just straight up kill the old gods themselves, and the Titans are huge, right? Have you ever tried to do something and your hands are just too fat to be able to get it done? Well, the Titans are like
all
that,
the time,
right? They're massive, right? And they're not going to be able to sit there with their fingers and pull stuff off on the planet. It's just not going to work. So they actually created beings on the planets, right, called Titan Keepers. And then those Titan Keepers then proceeded to create even smaller beings on the planet. And the smaller beings were things that we know, like the Earthen, the Vrykul, Mechanomes. Not the Mechanomes as playable. Let me clarify. They're not the playable Mechanomes that you're familiar with. These were fully mechanical gnomes, right? Completely mechanical gnomes, right? Not like the ones that we can play as. If you ever go to Northrend, you'll see what those Mechanomes were like. And all these creatures that were created from the Titans were made out of stone and metal and stuff, which is abnormal. It's abnormal for the Titans to do that. We've seen them create fleshy things, but in this case they didn't. which is unique but kind of cool. Part of the reason why we're told they didn't, though, is because by making stone creatures, the old gods would have less influence over them, right? I guess flesh makes you a little bit more prone to influence from the void and from the old gods. And so these creatures were all created to combat the old gods and conquer, because the old gods kind of had their own empire going on, right? They were ruling over this planet. And at this time, you already had like trolls on the planet and like Tauren and stuff, right? But the old guys were like ruling over the planet. So these beings, these earthen, these Vrykul, these mechanomes, and the Titan Keepers, right? They're all created to go to war and stop the old gods. And ultimately, they succeeded. They imprisoned the old gods. They couldn't kill them, but they were able to imprison the old gods deep underground in their like own like little vault thing, so that they couldn't escape. Spoiler alert, though, they still end up causing trouble later on. We as the players have to go deal with them. But the old gods aren't the conversation for today. The reason why I brought that up, though, is because the Vrykul, earthen, mechanomes, and a handful of other races as well, they began to be affected by what's called the Curse of Flesh. And so the Curse of Flesh actually turned, so over a long period of time, it turned those creatures into fleshly creatures. So the Vrykul, well, they're still Vrykul, but now they're fleshy Vrykul. And the earthen became what we know, the earthen became what we know as dwarves, and then the mechanomes became what we know as, well, gnomes now. I will also make a note on the Vrykul. I kind of joked about the Vrykul just becoming fleshy versions of the Vrykul. The Vrykul, though, were affected by the Curse of Flesh in a really odd way. And I'm sure you've seen a bunch of Vrykul while questing around in Legion, right? You'll see a bunch of them there. The Vrykul were interesting, though, because there was a group of the Vrykul where the Curse of Flesh went. We don't know if it was for sure the Curse of Flesh, but we assume it's related to the Curse of Flesh. Went a step further and didn't just make them fleshy. It also started to cause their offspring to be born smaller and weaker than a normal Vrykul, like a lot smaller than a normal Vrykul, right? These were the first humans. So that's where humans came from. Humans are actually the offspring of Vrykul that were born weak and small and left, I think they were in Northrend time, left Northrend and came down to the Eastern Kingdoms and kind of made their home there. So how the humans came to be, the dwarves came to be, and the gnomes came to be. Later on, the mechanomes that you know and love, those were gnomes that were trying to turn themselves back into mechanomes. Not actually doing a very good job of that, to be honest. It was kind of grotesque body horror, to be honest. But they were trying, right? Anyways, so while the Titans are doing this, they're trying to go around, order the universe. They're trying to save Azeroth. They're doing all these things. There was another Titan named Sargeras. And Sargeras is arguably probably the strongest of the Titans. I would say he's probably the strongest of the Titans. And he was given a special task that's different than all the other Titans. His job was to go around and like fight off these demons, like the Burning Legion. It's hard to call it the Burning Legion because at this point there's no order or organization to it. They were just off doing whatever they wanted, right? But these fell creatures across the universe, these demons, he's going around and he's just slaying them all. Now you have to remember, though, as we said, the Burning Legion can resurrect in the Twisting Nether, right? So if you kill one of the demons, eventually they'll just kind of come back to life in the Twisting Nether and then make their way back over here and cause chaos again. So Sargeras was actually going around and he was imprisoning them on like a planet. Like he actually like imprisoned them on what was called like a prison planet at the time, called Mardoom, right? And so he's doing this travels. He's imprisoning all of the Burning Legion that he comes across on this planet Mardoom, and he discovers a planet that has been corrupted by the Void. I think it might be Old God influence. I don't quite remember. But what I do know is that unlike the Burning Legion, this actually like scared him a lot. So what does he do?
And that's where the Devourer Demon Hunters are from?
Yeah, that's where the Devourer Demon Hunters are from.
Actually?
No.
Huh.
No, Devoured Demon Hunters. Actually, okay, I can explain it real quick. Side tangent. They're from. Well, you fight the first Devoured Demon Hunter in the raid, right? So it's actually like a brand new thing that's just come to be. Mm-hmm. So, anyways,
I should have known that.
No,
That was a boneheaded thing.
No, you're good. You're good. I like these conversations. So, anyway, Sargeras cleaves the planet in half, right? Because he's just like, yo, this can't be saved. This planet is like, this is terrible. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. And he just straight up kills the planet. He just kills it. I'm sure you've noticed the sword sticking out of our planet. Probably the exact same sword he used to chop that planet in half, to be honest.
Oh.
The fact that our planet didn't get cut in half is kind of a miracle. It's kind of awesome. Because I like this game, and I don't want my character to die and lose his house because the planet was cut in half.
True.
So he goes back, right? And he starts, like, trying to convince the other Titans, right? The Pantheon of Titans that, like, yo, this Void thing is horrendous. We got to get rid of this. Like, this has to go. This is the worst. Like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. The Void needs to go. We got to go start destroying planets. And he catches wind of this planet Azeroth that they found that had Void corruption on it, but, like, also had an insanely powerful world soul. He wants to go destroy this planet Azeroth. The other Titans refuse. They're like, dude, we're not telling you where this planet is. You're not finding this planet. It's too risky. Like, just way too risky. And Sargeras ain't putting up with it. He kills all the other Titans. Kills them. They don't, like, totally die. It's kind of this weird Vagity thing where, like, their spirits kind of drift off and rest inside some beings on Azeroth, which is kind of odd, but you don't need to know that. That's not important. Let's just say for the sake of this conversation, they're mostly dead. Like, they're barely hanging on to life, but they're mostly dead. And now Sargeras starts trying to find out where Azeroth is. His goal is to get to Azeroth, maybe destroy Azeroth, maybe corrupt Azeroth. We're not totally sure, but he's kind of starting to go a little bonkers in the head, right? Whatever he saw on that Void planet terrified him. His mission now is to just destroy Void planets when he can find them, and he knows he needs an army to do it. And that's when he goes back to Mardoom, the prison planet, and releases all of those demons. And that's where the Burning Legion officially forms, right? Like, as an actual organized thing. Because you have to remember, Sargeras is still a Titan. He's still a Titan. No matter how much fell energy he's hopped up on right now, he is still a Titan. And because he's a Titan, he wants to bring order and organization to this group of, like, demons, right? So that's Sargeras. That's his story. That's kind of where he came from. You said you've heard Sargeras' name before. Does that kind of make sense with what you've encountered?
Yeah, from the book.
Oh, awesome. What's happened in the book so far?
Yeah, they just mentioned that, like, him and basically he's the one that's, like, telling Killjade and all this stuff to do, I think. Maybe?
Perfect. Well, guess where we're about to go. Do you know who Killjade is?
No, I thought he was a guy named Jaden that they wanted us to kill.
Well, guess what?
Dead serious.
Next on my notes, right here, in big bold letters, it says Space Goats. It's like my favorite movie, Spaceballs, but now it's about goats. Goats in space. That's right. That's right. Our favorite, one of my favorite races in the game, the Draenei. The Draenei, right? Now, the Draenei are interesting. If we go way back, they are one of the most ancient races in World of Warcraft. I think they're the oldest race that we can play. As far as I know, I'm 99.9% confident on that they're the oldest race we can play in WoW. But they were not always called the Draenei. They were once called the Eridar. And the Eridar were this, like, arcane master of, like they were just so good at using arcane magic. They were super smart, super wise. And they also had 3 leaders. The Eridar had three guys who kind of led together, working in this, I think they call it like a triumvirate or something. Working together, though. You want to try and guess any of their names?
One is Killjade and...
Yes.
One is, oh my goodness, he's again from that book, but I forget his name. Oh my goodness, yeah, because they went to Argus, I think, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Maybe, or they
Yeah.
fled from Argus.
No, the planet that the Draenei are from, or the Eridar are from, is called Argus. You are correct.
Eh.
I'm pretty impressed,
I'm
dude.
impressed.
I'm impressed. Yeah, good job.
Well, yeah, because doesn't Doomhammer dude and the other kid get picked up by the Draenei?
Yes, you're talking about Doomhammer, Orgrim Doomhammer, and don't tell me right now. It's Thrall's dad. Starts with a D.
Yeah.
Durtar.
Durtar.
Durtar is the land.
Oh,
Durtan is
right.
the
Yeah,
guy.
Durtan.
Yeah. Dude, sometimes I wonder if my wife listens in the background while I talk about this stuff, just going like, how does my husband just know these things? Duratan? What is he talking about? But anyways,
Yeah, don't ask me.
the Eridar had 3 leaders, right? So they had killed Jaden. They had another guy named Archimond. And then they had a third guy, and this is the one you're probably thinking of, Velen.
Yes.
Right, Velen. And so those were the 3 leaders of the Horde. Killed Jaden, Archimond, and Velen. And they're all considered to be super wise, super smart. Velen, though, also had this little extra gift of prophecy, right? Like, he would get visions occasionally about things that were going to happen or things he needed to know. But these guys were the leaders of Argus, of the Eridar. They were super powerful. And
super powerful.
One day, Sargeras shows up. He just shows up somehow and contacts them, right? And he offers them power, a lot of power, in exchange for obedience. And because as I mentioned, right, the Burning Legion is chaotic, right? It is literally just fell magic, hopped up chaos energy, right? And Sargeras, being a Titan of Order, still wanted to bring order to the Burning Legion, and so he needed organization. He needed generals, commanders, right? Like, he needed people who could lead, because Sargeras isn't going to control everything himself. He needs to have other people to kind of do the work, right? Like, you can't have one manager for the 5,000 person company. You know,
for
you got
1 billion people.
Yeah, so he needed managers, and so he goes to them, and Kil'jaeden and Archimond agree to join him. They're like, this sounds awesome. Now, you have to remember, like, he kind of posed in a way that seemed enticing. Like, it wasn't just like, yo, come do evil things for me, guys. Right? Like, posed a little more enticing than that. But Velen he kind of had a prophecy that, yo, this isn't good. And he was able to escape, right? He was able to escape Argus and lead a small fraction of the people, of the Draenei. Well, I say Draenei because that's the race we can play in the game. And so I always mess up. But the Eridar, right? He could lead a small faction of the Eridar off of Argus with the help of the Naru. So we had talked about the Naru as these crystal light beings. It was the Naru who had approached Velen and helped him get off the planet. And so that's where the Draenei, because the Draenei have very close relationships with a lot of the Naru. That's where the Draenei got to know them and build that close relationship. It's where the Draenei got to get super close with the light and understand the light more. Because the Draenei we know are like awesome paladins, right? They're amazing priests. And so it's weird thinking like, oh no, there was a time where their thing was being mages. Like, mages is what they were best at. And now we're like, yo, they're the best paladins. But it's all because
weird.
Yeah, it's all because of the Naru saving them. Now, it's also during that time when they escaped Argus. That is when they changed their name from Eridar to Draenei, right? And I don't remember exactly what Draenei means, but it's like something like the escaped ones or something, or the I don't know, something like that. Also, speaking of Argus, because you've been playing a lot of Legion, right? Have you ever noticed that like random planet in the sky in Legion?
No.
Okay,
I don't think I have.
Next time you're in Remix, look up at the sky and you just see this like giant green blown up looking planet in the sky, like fell hopped planet. That's Argus.
Oh yeah, I've been to Argus. Yeah, okay. You can go there, right?
Yep, you can go there. Yeah,
there's a raid on there.
Yeah, yep, correct. Never mind, you've been there. Okay, well, less exciting. So
Yeah, because you fight Killgene.
oh, that's true. That's true. I haven't really done any of the raids in Remix for whatever reason. So
You mop the floor with him because he's a pansy in Remix.
So after the Draenei flee, right? They change their name. They flee on spaceships of all things, right? So they have spaceships that they're flying through space in, or I guess they're porting through the twisting nether in probably. But they try to create homes on different planets, and every time they do, the Burning Legion finally catches up to them, and they leave, right? I don't know if Sargeras really cares personally. I don't know if Sargeras really cares about the Draenei and what they're doing. I don't suspect he really does. However, Kil'jaeden and Archimonde hate the Draenei, right? Because Velen betrayed them, and it is their personal vendetta that these guys have got to die. Like, these guys have got to go. Like, they are the worst. And so they've been chasing them all over, and finally the Draenei land on this planet that seems pretty peaceful. It's not too bad. Good vegetation, good life, and they kind of start to form their home there. In fact, this is the first planet that they feel like they've really been able to settle their roots in and kind of get comfortable in. And they name the planet Draenor, right? That's how much they've come to love this home. Is like, this home is their home. It also happens to be the same planet that the orcs and ogres are living on and that they're from, right? So they land on the orcs and ogres home world and started doing that. This is unrelated, but one of my favorite little notes about that is like the spaceship that crashes into Draenor becomes this like sacred holy ground for the orcs. It's like a very shamanistic like ritual space for the orcs, and the Draenei are just like, oh my god, it's just a spaceship. It's not a rock. You know, like, because the orcs have no clue. They're just like these tribal dudes trying to do tribal things, and all of a sudden, like, a spaceship, this crystalline spaceship crashes into their planet. They think it's like this miracle thing, right? But that's just funny. I think it's a funny little note. Anyways, all that to say, that's all I'm going to cover right now regarding the orcs. They'll come back up in a little bit. And the reason why I'm setting all of this info up is because there's like, honestly, there's not a lot of characters that you really, really, really need to know going into Midnight. But the ones that you do really, really, really need to know, all of this plays into their backstory. And I don't want you to go into it and just be like, oh, I know that such and such happened, but I have no clue why it happened. I kind of want you to know a little bit of the why behind the what. Not just that the orcs attacked, but why did the orcs attack, right? Like, what was actually like going on, right? So the Draenei have landed there on this planet. This is where the orcs are at. It's where the ogres are at too. I like to include them because we sometimes forget ogres are also not from Azeroth. They're their own thing. But we're going to kind of switch gears now. And we were talking about our Draenei for a while, but I want to take a second and talk about elves. Because elves do play a huge role in Midnight. And they kind of play, we'll talk about it at the end. We're going to talk about the Heronir at the end. But there's a fascinating connection that we don't fully understand between the Heronir and the elves, right? So, what I'm about to tell you right now, you have to keep it a secret. If you tell the wrong people, you're going to upset them, right? But the story of the elves actually doesn't start with elves. It starts with trolls. All right? Trolls, of all things.
Interesting.
Specifically a group of trolls called the Dark Trolls. Now, the trolls that we can play in WoW, or the original trolls we could play, were the Dark Spear Trolls. They're not the same as the Dark Trolls. There's like maybe one Dark Troll that you can see in game, but we're not even sure if it's truly a real Dark Troll or just somebody that got labeled a Dark Troll. But the Dark Trolls were this group of nocturnal trolls that kind of worshipped the moon. They worshipped the moon, and they would huddle. They kind of formed their home around the Well of Eternity. That kind of became where they lived. And being around the Well of Eternity did two things to them. One, it gave them more control of the arcane because they had this fount of just arcane power, like just raw arcane power that they could tap into anytime they wanted to, and that was awesome. But two, the other thing it did was it physically changed their bodies. And so the Night Elves, as we know them today, all the elves do, but specifically the night elves are the direct descendant, as far as we're aware. The Haranir lore might change this, so come midnight, it might change it a little bit, but as far as we understand, elves are descended from trolls. I don't know if you found that surprising or not. Maybe I've told you before, but that is the case. Elves come from trolls in Warcraft.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I did know that.
A little weird to think about. There's kind of like a bit of a joke that like you don't tell elves that, or you don't make mention of it because they find it very offensive. But I think it's funny, so it's whatever. Now we're going to talk about what's called the War of the Ancients. We're going to be really brief with it. The War of the Ancients was basically the Queen Azshara of the Night Elves. She was loved by all the Night Elves. They just found her amazing. To them, she was perfect in like every conceivable way. Except actually Azshara was kind of the worst. The only reason why she got away with things was because she was so attractive. She was considered the most beautiful being that ever existed. And she knew it. Right? And so, but she was also the worst, right? And so she with her source, or like her mages and stuff, were starting to do like some experiments on the Well of Eternity and starting to try to like look into things and use its magic source more powerfully than they've been doing. And in doing so, they caught the attention of Sargeras, right? Because Sargeras, he's been looking for Azeroth, right? And so they ended up,
what's going on?
Yeah, so they ended up using the Well of Eternity as this portal, as a portal into Azeroth. And Sargeras is trying to get the Night Elves to do this like spell that would allow him to somehow come through the portal. I'm not totally sure how, but somehow for him to come through the portal into Azeroth. If you ever want to hear this story, literally the book War of the Ancients, I think it's a couple books, is really good. I have it. Your wife bought it for me, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I think she saw the bookstore one time, picked it up, which was awesome. So I have a copy. It's a good book. But anyways, they're coming through. While that's happening, there's two brothers, and they're both in love with the same girl. All right. Do you know who the two brothers are? Do you have any guesses?
The two people below, or the two people I already said.
Kil'jaeden and Velen. Oh, no, you're thinking Durtan and Orgrim Doomhammer?
Yeah.
Nah, close. Very close. Very, very close. No, the two brothers are Malfurion Stormrage and Illidan Stormrage.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking, wow, that sounds familiar. That's because we play on these Stormrage servers.
Yeah.
So now you know. That's where that name comes from. Illidan and Malfurion. And they were in love with the same woman named Tyrande. Now, fast forward to where we're at in the story now. Tyrande and Malfurion are married. So, spoiler alert, Malfurion gets the girl, right? But both brothers know that what's going on right now is horrendous. It's not good. They need to stop Queen Azshara. They need to stop the other Night Elves. A lot of those Night Elves often refer to themselves as Highborn, right? Because they consider them better than most, right? They were the ones who were closest to the well and had the most magic. And they were just the best. They were high society amongst the elves, right? But Malfurion and Illidan knew they needed to stop them. But both brothers took very different approaches, right? So Tyrande was a priestess of Elune, right? I talked to you about that troll moon worship. Tyrande was doing that. Malfurion ended up becoming, and this is unrelated to Midnight, so I can probably skip this, but I just love these guys, so I'm going to reference it so you know. Malfurion became the first modern-day druid. I say modern-day, but this all happened like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But Malfurion basically became the first druid as we know druids, right? He trained under a guy named Cenarius, learned how to enter the Emerald Dream, trained to become a druid, and use that druidic power to fight off this invasion. The invasion of the Well of Eternity. Illidan, on the other hand, went a totally different approach. He tried to use arcane magic, and he was very good at arcane magic, by the way. Illidan was a phenomenal arcane magic user. However, ended up getting caught by the enemy, encountering Sargeras himself, had his eyes burned out and replaced with just raw fel energy, and a few other things. And basically, Illidan from that point forward just started hopping himself up on fel magic whenever he could get a chance, and he became the first demon hunter, right? So Illidan was the first demon hunter. Malfurion was the first druid, basically, and big deal, right? That both brothers extremely successful at what they did, just took very different approaches to do it. Anyways, they ended up fighting off the invasion with the help of some of the dragons, but then there was a betrayal of the dragons. Go read War of the Ancients. It's a phenomenal story. But at the end of all of it, in order to stop the invasion, Malfurion actually ends up basically literally blowing up the Well of Eternity. Originally, if you were to look at a map of Azeroth, the way, like, if you pressed M in game and opened up your map, if Malfurion had never blown up the Well of Eternity, it would be one big landmass, right? Like, you know how right now you have like the two big landmasses and a bunch of like smaller like islands around and Northrend at the top. Picture it just one big landmass, right? And when the Well of Eternity blew up, it literally blew a huge chunk of land away, just sunk the land into the ground. And then I also assume, I can't guarantee this, but I assume based upon just the scale of things, it looks like it also actually physically shifted the land apart further, right? So blew a huge hole and then shifted those continents away from each other even further. It was like a massive event and moment when the Well of Eternity blew up. And so that kind of changed the land as we know it now. And shortly after the land blew up, a few more things happened. One, a group of the Highborn elves who were living in Suramar, they ended up shielding themselves off from the explosion of the Well of Eternity, and that's why they are now known as the Nightborn that we meet in Legion, right? So the Nightborn we meet in Legion were a group of the Highborn that shield themselves off for like 1,000 years, living in there. Ashara and a bunch of her followers actually sank into the ocean and made a deal with an old god, and that's what turned them into the Naga. So whenever you encounter Naga, those used to be night elves long ago that made a deal with I think it was Nazath probably, to become Naga and serve him, right? So the Naga come from that. Then you have just general highborn that decide they want to go through their own thing. You have some of the night elves, right? The night elves kind of got together and were like, yo, we don't want arcane magic. Arcane magic's the worst, right? Tyrande and Malfurion became the leader of them. However, while they're going around talking about how terrible arcane magic is now, Malfurion's brother Illidan is trying to create a new Well of Eternity because he got some vials of water from the original Well of Eternity before it blew up. And so he makes a new Well of Eternity on a place called Mount Hyjal. Malfurion finds out. He's not happy about this. He's ticked off, right? It's not nearly as powerful as the original, but still very powerful. Like, still very, very powerful. And they ultimately end up planting what's called a world tree, right? World trees are these, like, ancient trees that are just connected to the Emerald Dream. Amirdrasil, the raid we did in the Emerald Dream patch back in Dragonflight, Amirdrasil is a world tree. Do you remember that?
Okay.
Yeah. That tree we were trying to protect, right? That's a world tree. This one was called Nordrasil, and when it was planted, the dragons actually showed up and blessed the tree as well, so that the tree would basically, the idea of the tree would, it would block the Burning Legion from being able to sense that this source of arcane energy is here, right? It kind of blocks it off. But then the blessing of the dragons also gave the Night Elves easier access to the Emerald Dream, so that the druids can enter the Emerald Dream easier, and gave the Night Elves eternal life. So the Night Elves just were immortal, basically. It gave them immortality, right? And that was pretty cool, except Illidan got to enjoy his immortality being locked up in prison for like 1,000 years or 10,000 years or something.
Dang.
I think it's like 10,000 years. A long time.
Sucks to suck.
Yeah, kind of does. Maybe he shouldn't have been the worst. Listen, I know people love Illidan, but he also like consistently does like the worst things ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like the same reason people like Arthas. So
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
he wasn't a great guy at the end of the day, right?
No, no. Now, what I will say too is like, no, wait, Arthas is different because Arthas, like, people try to pretend like Illidan's the hero half the time, right? And he does do good things sometimes. He, like, I don't know, he's that dude that, like, punches a child, but somehow punching a child actually
He's
ended
like,
up
okay.
saving like 10 million people.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
And you're
That's
like, wait, hold up. Hold up. Did you know that was going to save people when you punched that child? Or did you just want to punch a child? Right? Like, I don't know.
Did you just punch that child?
Right. Yeah. But the reason why I'm talking about all this elf story and you're like, what does this have to do with Midnight? Is because the elves are all playing a pretty major role in Midnight. And I wanted you to understand the different mindsets that they all have. Right. And so that's why this is so important. So you have the night elves who are kind of not okay with arcane magic. In recent WoW lore, they've kind of allowed it back into their society. For a while, arcane magic was completely banned. Now they're kind of letting it back in, but it's not their favorite. It's not their favorite thing. They would prefer not to have it if they could. So they're living off doing nature tree hugger things, right? The Nightborn were huddled under their shield forever, just getting uber addicted to mana, right? And then you have a group of the Highborn who kept also, just like Illidan, they also had a couple vials of Well of Eternity water. And they did not want to be with the Night Elves, right? They were Night Elves themselves, right? They looked exactly the same. They just considered themselves a little more posh. But they liked their arcane magic, and they absolutely did not want to abide by Malfurion and Tyranda's rules about no more arcane. So they get on a boat and they sail east and head towards the Eastern Kingdoms. And so they land in the Eastern Kingdoms, and they kind of just start heading north. What they're looking for is a place where the ley lines of the planet. So think of like these lines that cross all over Azeroth in no particular arrangement. They just kind of randomly cross over the planet. And wherever those lines of arcane energy cross, there's more magic at their crossing points. And so they were trying to find a place where multiple like lines were all crossing at the same spot, right? And so they managed to travel north to Eversong Woods, where they were able to find that, and that's where they settled down. They created what's called the Sunwell using their vials that they had of the Well of Eternity water. So they created their own mini Well of Eternity, basically. They called it the Sunwell. And they proceeded to make that their home. And over time, they actually, because they were less nocturnal than the Night Elves traditionally were, and through the power of the Sunwell's involvement, that's where they became more pale and smaller in stature. And they're known as they renamed themselves to the High Elves, right? So they were the Highborn for a while, renamed themselves to the High Elves. And so that's kind of where High Elves come from. And they were also living in territory that once belonged to a lot of forest trolls, right? You had forest trolls living in the northern part of the Eastern Kingdoms. And when they moved in, forest trolls were not happy. The most important group, and all this info that you're getting right now is directly Midnight related, by the way. The where the Sunwell is created, the Sunwell is the thing we're trying to defend in Midnight, right? The city that formed up next to the Sunwell for the High Elves is Silvermoon City. That's the main hub city of Midnight, right? So these elves who kind of try to find this place to live so they could keep doing arcane magic, that's there. Next to them is a place called Zulaman, the home of the Amani trolls. The Amani trolls were the strongest faction of forest trolls that were living in the area. You can tell they're forest trolls because they're green, in case you're ever curious. They're green. But the Amani were not happy, and they were constantly at war with the High Elves, trying to take back that territory, which is a pretty big deal. And actually, the biggest of these wars with the trolls was known as the Troll War, right? And so one thing that you need to know about the Troll War is that during this war, the elves were kind of starting to lose some ground. Like they were starting to get a little desperate, and so they cut a deal with like humans who are living nearby. So they reached out to the human civilizations that were just forming. At this point, humans were not really achieving much. They had a couple kingdoms. They had some kingdoms, but they weren't like particularly strong outside of physical combat, right? They had like some minor druidic, shamanistic-ish ability, but not anything like we know today, right? Like they just weren't doing a whole lot. And so the elves reached out and were like, hey, we could really use your help. We need your help. And so the humans cut a deal with them. It was actually a wicked good deal. And the elves knew this was not a good deal for them to make, but they didn't have any other choice. They had to do it. So the deal was that the humans would help out in this war with the trolls if the elves promised, because at the time their king was Lothar, the elves promised to aid one of Lothar's descendants, or years like whenever, right? That at some point the humans got one favor, right? They could ask any favor, and the elves had to come help them out with that favor, right? The other thing was that the elves would train 100 mages, 100 human mages, because the humans didn't have mages. They had no mages. And so they were like, yo, if you teach 100 of our people how to use magic, we'll come help you. And the elves were like, okay, we'll do it.
Sure.
We'll make it happen. They didn't want to, because obviously giving up, right? That's a lot of power that you're giving to someone who could potentially be your enemy one day. But they didn't. And the humans turned out to actually be really good at learning magic. Like, the elves were kind of shocked. They're like, wait a second. Did we make a mistake? This might be bad. But this was really the beginning of like the elven-human relations. Generally, for the most part, high elves and humans have usually gotten along pretty well. Which is kind of surprising why the high elves didn't join the alliance. But we'll get to that in a second, right? Now, I think that's everything regarding the elves. Yeah, that's all. Whew, that's all the elf story that we have for now. Chicken, how are you feeling?
Oh, tired.
You're tired? Dude, you got it in. You got it in you for some more story, or do you want to save that for another episode? We might have to.
I don't know.
We might have to continue this one. We might do one more 45-minute segment tomorrow night. How's that sound?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Perfect. I'll cut these then. Everybody who's listening, thank you so much for being part of the Loreband. It sounds like we're going to try and put out 3 episodes in the time span that we would normally only do 2 episodes. So we'll find some time to record that third one, get the last bit of info in there. There's really not terribly much left, so it should be pretty good. And we just hope you all have an absolutely wonderful Christmas. I guess by the time this episode comes out, Christmas is over. Happy New Year, whatever it is. I can't keep track of time, but everyone's been great. We've been having a blast doing this, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, buddy.